Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson, which I've titled Along the Road. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about a number of things that you will see when you walk along a road or drive along a road, or if you're riding in a car or bus on a road or street or highway, the things that you will see out of the window as you drive along. This lesson was inspired by a guardrail, and I'll tell you what a guardrail is in just a moment. But in this lesson, I have I think I have 25 terms to teach you for things that you would see along the road, like a bike lane or a street sign or a roundabout or a shoulder or a median. Maybe some of these you will know, maybe some you won't. But welcome to this English lesson about things you will see along the road. Guardrail, a barrier along the side of a road that helps keep vehicles from leaving the roadway. They don't always have seagulls on them, but I thought this picture was kind of funny. But this metal structure is a guardrail. So there are posts in the ground, and then this large metal rail is attached to those posts, and we call this a guardrail. These are usually put in places where it would be more dangerous if a vehicle went off the road. So I think with this one, it might be close to a body of water. So they might have put a guardrail here so that if you lose control and you go off the road, you hit the guardrail instead of going into the body of water. Along our road, we have very large utility poles. And so there are guardrails there because they don't want people to accidentally go off the road. This is how people go off the road in my world. It's a bit like milking a cow. Never mind. This is a steering wheel, and then you lose control and you go off the road, and you hopefully gently hit the guardrail and it helps you. So a guardrail, a barrier along the side of a road that helps keep vehicles from leaving the roadway. Mile marker or distance marker. So this is kind of a funny one. But this is a sign beside a road that shows how far you have traveled or your location on the route. In Canada, we use kilometers. We have signs along the road in kilometers, usually along a highway, so a larger roadway. And I still call them mile markers. So even though we use kilometers, we talk about kilometers per hour. We talk about how many kilometers from here to Toronto. When I drive along a highway and I see a little sign like this and it says the number of kilometers, I still call it a mile marker, even though we don't use miles. The technical term would be distance marker, but I would say to Jen, what did the last mile marker say? And she might respond and say, I think it said 100 kilometers. So kind of a funny remnant of the fact that a remnant is something that's left over, but we used to use the imperial system in Ontario, Canada, and now we use the metric system. When I was a kid, the metric system was introduced. So mile marker or distance marker, a sign beside a road that shows how far you have traveled or your location on the route. You can also say route, by the way. I say route. Rest stop, rest area, a place beside a highway where travelers can stop to rest, eat, or use the washroom if you're in Canada. If you're in the United States, you can use the bathroom. We sometimes say use the facilities. That's another way to refer to a bathroom or a washroom. Or you might say restroom. For me, I will tell you that personally, when I think about a rest stop or rest area, it's usually a lot more commercialized than this. It usually includes a gas station and a bunch of restaurants and those types of things, as well as bathrooms and washrooms and maybe lots of shady trees. Sometimes when I think rest stop or rest area, I think more, when I was driving in the United States, the rest stop and rest areas had a lot more trees. It was more like a park. Here in Canada, I believe a lot of them are actually more, when I say commercialized, it means there are a lot of stores and restaurants, more restaurants than stores. Roundabout, a circular intersection where vehicles travel around a central island before taking an exit. I'm pretty good at single lane roundabouts. I am not very good at 2-lane roundabouts. Roundabouts are relatively new here in Ontario, Canada. We've had them for 10 or 20 years, but they are growing in popularity for various reasons. They're apparently good for traffic flow and safety. But a roundabout is a circular intersection where vehicles, just looking at oh yes, so I have this one coming up next. A circular intersection where vehicles travel around a central island. So the grass piece in the middle, the circle, we would call an island, and then before taking an exit. There is a town a little ways away from me where they have a lot of 2-lane roundabouts, and I'm still sometimes confused what lane I'm supposed to be in when I'm in one of those roundabouts. An intersection, a place where 2 or more roads meet or cross. So this is the more traditional way for 2 roads to meet in my part of the world. And I think that we are going to have both roundabouts and intersections for quite a while, because I think it's hard to put a roundabout in where there is an intersection. So often an intersection will have stoplights. It might simply have a stop sign, but it's a place where 2 or more roads meet or cross each other. A median. So this might be a newer word for you. You might know it from the world of math, but in the world of things along the road, a median is the strip of land or barrier that separates traffic moving in opposite directions. So sometimes the lanes on a road are right beside each other and there's simply a yellow line. But sometimes, especially for large highways, they are separate. So the traffic going one direction is separated from the traffic going the other direction by what we call a median. So the median can simply be grass. So in this case, it looks like the median, there might even be a ditch in the middle to allow water to drain. But mostly it looks like grass. And obviously it's the time of year where it's not growing yet. So median, the strip of land or barrier that separates traffic moving in opposite directions. Shoulder, the area beside the edge of a road where vehicles can stop in an emergency. So for me, if you see where the truck is driving, he would be in one of the lanes of the highway. If you look at the pavement between the grass and that lane, I would call that the shoulder. So in my definition, the shoulder is still part of the road. If you're on the grass, that's no longer the shoulder, in my opinion. And the road from the lane to the grass could also be gravel or stone, and I would still call that the shoulder of the road. So if you can imagine, this is a shoulder. When you have a road, the little strip on the edge of each side is called the shoulder. So shoulder, the area beside the edge of a road where vehicles can stop in an emergency. Curb. So if you're in the city, you might see this. A curb is the raised edge between a road and a sidewalk. Now at market once, there was a lady with a walker with wheels on the bottom, and she drove off the curb and she fell down. And so I ran over to help her, and other people came as well. She wasn't injured, but a curb prevents vehicles from easily going off the road in a city. So it's to protect pedestrians, but it can also be dangerous if you can trip on the curb. You can not see the curb and step down. I've done that before. Or if you have a walker, you have to be cautious that you don't go over the edge. But curb, the raised edge between a road and a sidewalk, primarily designed to separate foot traffic from vehicle traffic. So it's very difficult for a vehicle, like you can drive up the curb, but it's very difficult. So curb, the raised edge between a road and a sidewalk. Bike lane, a section of a road set aside for people riding bicycles. These are becoming more popular in cities in Canada, and they're usually marked with paint, white paint, indicating that it is a bike lane. I'm just trying to think, I don't call it a bicycle lane. It's always a bike lane. It's kind of a weird word, bike and bicycle, because in the definition, a section of road set aside for people riding bicycles sounds normal. I could have said for people riding bikes, but a bike lane is a bike lane. So a section of a road set aside for people riding bicycles. Let me go back to this one. A big problem probably around the world right now is people riding really fast e-bikes in the bike lane. So some cities are starting to ban e-bikes in the bike lane if they go over 30 kilometers an hour. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but people quite often buy e-bikes which only go a certain speed, and then they remove the limiter so they can go faster, or they put a different motor in so they can go faster. So big problem in some cities. They're starting to ban e-bikes in the bike lane. Construction zone. A necessary evil. I'm not sure if you're aware of that English phrase. A necessary evil is a bad thing, but you need to do it because it's actually good. So I would say a construction zone is a necessary evil. On one hand, it's annoying as a driver because it slows you down. But on the other hand, eventually the road or whatever they're fixing will be better. So construction zone, an area where road work is being done and drivers must use extra caution. Must use extra caution. So caution is when you are careful. So construction zone. I'm sure this is true around the world. In Canada, the speed limit is much lower in a construction zone. And if you go over that speed limit, the fine, the amount of money you pay, is often double or triple. So sometimes you'll see a sign that says construction zone, reduced speed, 60 kilometers an hour, and then fines doubled if you're speeding. So you do not want to speed in a construction zone. You want to keep the workers safe. But a construction zone, an area where road work is being done and drivers must use caution. Traffic cone or pylon. A bright cone-shaped marker used to guide traffic or warn people of hazards. So this is a pretty standard pylon. It's orange, it's tapered. So it's like an upside down ice cream cone. It's a really large plastic upside down ice cream cone. That's kind of what it looks like. I wonder which came first, the pylon or the ice cream cone. They're the only two things I can think of right now that are that shape. But yes, so I guess it is a bright cone-shaped marker used to guide traffic or warn people of hazards. If you see a pylon or a traffic cone, you will want to slow down because it probably means you need to move over a lane. It might mean there's construction ahead or something else is happening. Pedestrian, a person who is walking, especially along roads or streets. So technically, anyone that is walking somewhere is a pedestrian. They are using their feet. They are using their feet. There's no word feet in the... Okay, that's not true. You could have feats of strength, but you only have 2 feet. So don't listen to the Bob who earlier pluralized it with an S. A pedestrian is someone who is using their feet as a mode of transportation. We often, though, only use the word when someone is walking along a road or along a sidewalk or somewhere close to where there's also traffic. You would say there's a lot of pedestrians. I don't know why. When I think of, like, when you go to the park and there's people walking, I wouldn't call them pedestrians. I would just say they're people walking. If I was at the mall, I wouldn't say the mall has a lot of pedestrians in it. That's not the proper use of the word. But if I say there were a lot of pedestrians, they closed part of the road and there were a lot of pedestrians that were walking along the road, then I would use the word. So I think it's important, the definition, a person who is walking, especially along roads or streets, a pedestrian. Crosswalk, a marked area where pedestrians can safely cross a road. So you can see this gentleman here walking. He is at a crosswalk marked with the white lines. Ooh, that's a little too big. And you can see there's actually a sign here, a street sign, which I'll talk about later in the lesson, where it's indicating that both cyclists and pedestrians are allowed to use this crosswalk. Often a crosswalk, or almost always a crosswalk, has sidewalks leading up to it. So you can see in this bottom corner, there's a bit of a sidewalk there, and then a street sign, and then a pedestrian using the crosswalk. So a crosswalk, a marked area where pedestrians can safely cross a road. Cyclist, a person who rides a bicycle. Let me make that a bit bigger. So I don't like to say words that don't exist, but I have heard someone use the word bicyclist. There is no word, at least not used commonly. We say bicycle, we say bike, and we say cyclist. Those are the common ways to refer to the machine with two wheels that you pedal and the person who rides it. So a cyclist is a person who rides a bicycle. Often, because I live in, I think, a pretty nice area, there's a lot of beautiful countryside around me, and the roads are actually very well built. On the weekend, there are a lot of cyclists. You need to be aware when you're driving a car or milking a cow. No, when you're driving a car, you need to be very aware on Saturday and Sunday mornings that there are going to be a lot of cyclists. And usually they're in large groups, so they're easy to see, and they're usually wearing some sort of reflective vest, which helps quite a bit as well. Jogger or runner, a person who runs for exercise or recreation. So interestingly enough, the term jogger is from when someone goes for a jog. I use the word jogger still, and I use the word runner, but I don't use the verb to jog anymore. Like I would say something like this to Jen. Oh yeah, there was a jogger running along the road. More often, I think I just say runner. There were a couple runners on the road today, exercising. So a jogger is a person who runs for exercise or recreation. And probably more commonly, I would use the word runner now. Yeah, but the verb to jog, I think, reminds me of the 70s. And there might be people that still use that verb quite a bit. But for me, I say runner and to run more often. Street sign, a sign that gives information, directions, or rules for people using the road. So a street sign might say stop. A street sign might say speed limit 100 kilometers per hour. By the way, when I talk about speed, I say 100 kilometers per hour, but I also say 100 kilometers an hour. And I might even say 100 kilometers an hour. Like the most informal, fastest way to talk about speed is that way. He was going 100 kilometers an hour. She was doing 60 miles an hour. So you can use the verb to do as well. How fast was he going? Oh, he must have been doing 150 kilometers an hour. That is the everyday way of expressing speed. So anyways, a street sign might tell you how far it is to the nearest town. A street sign might tell you that there is a gas station close by or a hospital or an airport, but they will be on a pole, they will be along the road, and they will be brightly colored so they are easy to read. Overpass and underpass. Would you be surprised if I told you that an overpass and an underpass are the same thing? It just depends where you are when you are driving. So an overpass is a bridge that carries a road over another road, railway, or path. An underpass is a road, path, or tunnel that goes underneath another road or railway. But here's the sneaky part. If you're driving on top of this, it's an overpass. If you're driving below, it's an underpass. So I guess it isn't quite the same thing. The overpass is this top part. The underpass then is the underneath part. But again, depending on where you are with your vehicle, you are either on the overpass or you're going through the underpass. So an overpass, a bridge that carries a road over another road, railway, or path. Underpass, a road, path, or tunnel that goes underneath another road or railway. Sidewalk, a paved path beside a road where people can walk safely. Now, I kind of disagree with the definition I wrote. Sorry. Generally, sidewalks aren't paved. They're usually made of concrete. So they pour concrete to make a sidewalk. So the distinction here is, here we have a paved road. It's made of asphalt, and we have a concrete sidewalk. So I would say this definition up here is a little bit wrong. It should say a concrete path beside a road where people can walk safely. So again, if you're a civil engineer, that's the distinction. The road is paved. They use asphalt to make a paved road, and the sidewalk is made of concrete. But anyways, it's a place where people can walk safely. And if you look closely, there's a curb. And if you look at the two people walking to their right, you'll see a couple grates or storm drains, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. Power lines, wires that carry electricity from one place to another. There are power lines everywhere in the world. But I did hear in some countries, they bury their power lines, or they try to bury them. I wish we did that more in Canada, but I think the distances are too great. It would be very expensive to bury all of our power lines. But power lines, wires that carry electricity from one place to another. Grate or storm drain, a metal cover with openings that allows water to drain while blocking large objects. So very often when you build roads and when you have sidewalks and you have curbs, when it rains, the water needs to go somewhere. Otherwise, it would just fill up. And so you need to have storm drains or grates so the water can go in. So the distinction here is the large metal thing here is a grate. That's a general term for a large piece of metal with holes in it so water can get through, or air. A storm drain specifically is something you will see on a street to drain water away when it rains or when the snow melts or anything else. So grate or storm drain, a metal cover with openings that allows water to drain while blocking large objects, because you don't want sticks and branches and stuff to go down your storm drain. Culvert, a pipe or tunnel that carries water under a road or pathway. So you'll see here, there is a culvert. There is a culvert here. This is because traffic needs to go one way, but water also needs to flow. And you don't want water to go over a road, because eventually the road will be destroyed by the water. You might have what's called a washout. And so you put a culvert. A culvert is a long pipe that carries water under a road or pathway. So you can find culverts everywhere. I have a culvert under the end of my driveway because the water needs to flow along in the ditch. And so you have to have a culvert there so that it can get under your driveway. So culvert, a pipe or tunnel that carries water under a road or pathway. And then a ditch, a long, narrow channel dug beside a road to carry away water. So again, I showed you the culvert here probably leads to a ditch. And this is again for rainwater mostly, or for melting snow. You need the water to be able to go somewhere. You can't just have water remain on the road or on the sidewalk. You need it to drain. And so you have storm drains, you have culverts, you have ditches, all designed so that water can move away from the road. Manhole or maintenance hole. So this is one of the things where in our attempt to remove the word man from a lot of words like fireman, policeman, all of those kinds of things, this one does remain. Technically, this is called a maintenance hole, a covered opening that provides access to underground pipes or utilities. No one calls it a maintenance hole. At least no one I talk to calls it a maintenance hole. If you are working for the government, you will probably call this a maintenance hole. But in my world, everyone calls it a manhole. It's a manhole. And we also, the top part we sometimes call a manhole cover. So you can kind of use both terms, but yes, this is one of the ones that has, I guess, survived because it's just simpler to say. It's a manhole cover, a covered opening that provides access to underground pipes or utilities. Speed bump, a raised section of road designed to make drivers slow down. These are really annoying, but they work. If you live in a small subdivision, if you live in a residential area and you don't want people speeding, because there's lots of pedestrians and maybe kids playing outside and pets, so you want people to drive slowly and with caution, the city might install a speed bump or more. They might install speed bumps all through your subdivision or residential area. So this is a raised section of road designed to make drivers slow down. There's usually signs that say speed bump ahead. And then if you hit the speed bump going slow, it's pretty gentle. If you hit it fast, it's a little bit, well, it can even damage your car if you hit it too quickly. But speed bump, a raised section of road designed to make drivers slow down. This one looks like it's made of plastic. Sometimes the speed bump is actually made of pavement. Like they've actually put a paved section of the road that's raised up to make people bounce out of their seats a little bit.